The fluorescent lights hummed like dying insects. Carlton Pierce smelled sweat and recycled air in the Los Angeles International Airport baggage claim. 11 p.m. His muscles still burned from the Manila exhibition. 3 knockouts in 2 weeks, cameras trailing him through customs like hungry dogs. He rolled his shoulders, loosened his neck, then he saw him. Across the carousel, Bruce Lee stood waiting, black slacks and a simple shirt, hands at his sides. Few could understand what Pierce felt in that moment, the movie star. The kung fu mystic, the man every journalist asked him about. Their eyes locked, camera flashes erupted like gunfire. The crowd turned, sensing something primal. Phones rose, security officers shifted weight, hands drifting toward radios. The baggage belt groaned, forgotten luggage circling endlessly. Pierce grinned. He moved forward, cutting through travelers like a ship through fog. 6'3", 220 pounds, heavyweight champion of the world. His footsteps echoed on tile. The crowd parted, then closed behind him, forming a living arena. Bruce did not move, did not blink. Pierce stopped 3 feet away, extended his right hand. Not a greeting, a challenge. His smile widened, teeth white under harsh lights. But what Bruce did next? Pierce's voice exploded across the terminal. Hit me. The words echoed off baggage carousels. 1 punch, anywhere you want. His grin stretched wider. I swear I won't hit back. The crowd sucked in breath as one. Phones lifted. A woman near the security desk gasped. Bruce stood motionless. His hands hung loose at his sides, fingers relaxed, not a muscle twitched. Come on, man. Pierce rolled his massive shoulders. Show these people what you got. 2 security officers edged closer, thumbs hovering over radio clips. The metallic click of their boots on tile cut through rising murmurs. The chant started low. Do it, do it. Do it. Bruce's expression never changed, calm, steady, his breathing barely visible beneath his dark shirt. Pierce stepped forward, closing the gap to 3 feet. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across his face. You scared, his voice dropped to a stage whisper that somehow carried everywhere. Of hitting me. The air smelled like burnt coffee and floor polish. Someone coughed nervously. Bruce's mother stood frozen near Carousel 4, both hands gripping her purse. The crowd pressed tighter. Phones trembled in sweating palms. Security spoke quietly into radios now, eyes sharp. Pierce spread his arms wide, chest exposed. Free shot, Bruce, right here, but Bruce's feet shifted just an inch. Bruce's voice cut through the noise, quiet as a blade drawn from silk. Too many people. His eyes swept the pressing circle. Someone gets hurt when crowds push. The words landed soft, reasonable. Pierce seized them like ammunition. You hear that? He spun toward the cameras, arms wide, teeth flashing under fluorescent glare. Bruce Lee's worried about the crowd, worried about, safety. His laugh boomed off the tile walls. Funny how movie stars talk about danger when there's no stuntman to take the hit. The mob roared approval, phones thrust higher. The air tasted metallic, sharp with sweat and spectacle. All those films, Pierce circled now, playing ringmaster. Wire work, camera tricks, but here, right now, he slapped his chest, the sound like a drum beat. No director to yell cut. Bruce's jaw tightened, barely visible. Imagine carrying your mother's hope across an ocean, only to watch it unravel under airport lights. Few could bear the weight of legacy compressed into a single breath. Grace Lee's hand gripped the handle of her suitcase, knuckles bone white. Pierce stepped closer, voice dropping to mock intimacy. Show them you're real, Bruce, or admit you've been selling illusions all along. The terminal seemed to inhale and hold it, because what Bruce did next would define him forever. Pierce thrust his right fist forward, held it inches from Bruce's face. 1 punch, prove it. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting stark shadows across his knuckles. Cameras clicked like hungry insects. Few in that terminal could understand the weight of what Pierce offered, not just a hand, but a warrior's test wrapped in showman's cloth. Bruce's shoulders dropped half an inch, not surrender, release. He stepped closer, but his voice came soft. Give me your wrist instead. The request landed strange. Pierce blinked, his grin flickering. A handshake, then peace offering. He relaxed his fist, extended his right hand palm up, wrist exposed. The gesture felt almost ceremonial. All right, Lee, we shake on it. Victor Mills shifted his weight behind Pierce, jaw tight. Something unspoken passed through the crowd, a collective inhale, questions forming but not yet voiced. Grace Lee's fingers found her necklace, holding it like prayer beads. Bruce moved forward until the space between them disappeared. His hand rose, fingers loose, deceptively gentle. The distance closed to inches, to breath. Pierce's wrist hung in the air between them, pulse visible beneath the skin, veins tracing blue rivers no one else could see. The terminal went silent, every eye fixed on that single point of contact about to ignite. Bruce's thumb pressed into the wrist. Pierce felt nothing, then everything collapsed. His fingers opened like cut strings. The gym bag slipped from his grip, thudded against tile. Numbness flooded up his forearm, cold and absolute, erasing muscle and bone. He jerked backward, arms swinging dead at his side. What? His voice cracked. He shook his hand violently. The fingers dangled, useless meat. Cameras flashed, but he barely saw them. Sweat broke across his neck, 23 years of training, and his body betrayed him with one touch. The crowd's roar faded to white noise. Bruce leaned close, voice barely a whisper. If I had struck your throat instead, you would not be standing. Pierce's chest tightened. He stared at his lifeless hand, then at Bruce's calm eyes. Fear spiked through him, primal, animal. This was not fighting, this was surgery. Control so precise it felt like magic, but beneath the fear, something else stirred, fascination. His fingers twitched. Sensation crept back, pins and needles crawling up his arm. He flexed his hand twice, testing reality. How did you? Bruce turned toward the exit, toward his waiting mother. Pierce's question hung unfinished in the fluorescent glare, and suddenly winning championships felt like knowing nothing at all. Pierce shook his hand, hard, pins and needles crawled up his forearm like fire ants beneath the skin. His fingers twitched, half dead, refusing commands. The crowd pressed closer, a wall of heat and noise and hungry eyes. Cameras flashed in relentless bursts, security cut through, 2 officers, hands on radios. Break it up, now. The crowd roared protest. A woman shouted for one more demonstration. A man thrust his camera forward, lens hunting for Pierce's useless hand. Bruce turned toward his mother, shoulders squared, already gone. Pierce's heartbeat hammered loud in his ears. The tingling sharpened to electric pulses. Sensation returned in cruel increments. He flexed his fingers, they obeyed barely. Wait, the word scraped out before he could stop it. No showman's swagger, no champion's demand, just raw need. Bruce paused, didn't turn. Pierce stepped forward, crowd parting instinctively. Teach me. Bruce glanced back. His eyes measured Pierce the way surgeons measure incisions. 742 May Street. His voice carried no invitation, no warmth. Tomorrow. 2 o'clock, come alone or don't come. He walked away, his mother's arm tucked gently in his. Pierce stood motionless, digits burning back to life, the address carving itself into memory like a blade through wax. The narrow doorway smelled of sandalwood and old wood. Pierce ducked through, Victor Mills closed behind. No cameras waited inside. No crowd, just mirrors reflecting polished floors and a silence that made his breathing loud. Bruce stood at the center, barefoot, arms relaxed. The champion's chest tightened. This was not a gym. This was a temple where ego came to die. You wanted proof, Bruce said. I will give you understanding. For 4 hours, Bruce traced invisible maps across Victor's arm, nerve clusters blooming under fingertips like landmines. The radial nerve, the median, the ulnar pathway down to the wrist. Pierce watched his trainer's face cycle through confusion, discomfort, sudden gasps as Bruce applied pressure lighter than a handshake yet devastating as a cross. So it is knockout versus system shutdown, Pierce said, testing the words. Bruce's head tilted. No, the correction landed soft but absolute. A knockout recovers, the nervous system. Bruce pressed 2 fingers beneath Victor's jaw. The trainer's knees buckled. Remembers trauma. Learns fear faster than conscious mind. Pierce swallowed hard. His fists, weapons he'd trusted for 15 years, felt clumsy as stones. Bruce smiled then, almost sad. What I showed you tonight is only the outer gate. The dim Mac has 36 chambers. He paused. We have barely entered the first. 14 days, the wooden floor of the Chinatown school grew familiar under Pierce's feet, the scent of liniment oil clinging to his training clothes. Bruce moved through demonstrations like water finding cracks in stone, 50 variations, where Pierce had relied on 5 brutal strikes his entire career. Victor Mills watched from the corner, notebook abandoned after day 3. Pierce's hands learned angles his mind could not yet name, a thumb pressed behind the jaw, 2 fingers sliding beneath the collarbone. The heel of the palm against the floating rib, not to break but to interrupt the signal traveling up the spinal cord, each touch precise as a surgeon's incision. Few could comprehend how completely a worldview could shatter and rebuild in 2 weeks. On the final evening, Pierce sat with his inner circle at a downtown steakhouse. They asked about the bruises mapping his forearms, the new hesitation in his swagger. "Bruce ain't what you think," Pierce said, voice low and certain. "He's a fighter who happens to do movies." Victor nodded slowly, understanding the inversion, not the other way around. The distinction settled over the table like a verdict. Respect had become something deeper, something that tasted like reverence. But the phone call that reached Pierce 13 months later would turn all that reverence into unbearable grief. The casket gleamed under July sun, impossibly small for what it held. Carlton Pierce stood at the cemetery's edge, shoulders hunched beneath his black suit. The smell of fresh-turned earth mixed with lilies, too sweet, suffocating. Cameras clicked like insects around the mourners. He did not care. Salt burned tracks down his face, dripping onto his collar. He had knocked out 17 men in the ring, never cried once. The service ended. Mourners shifted, voices hushed. Pierce watched Linda Lee rise, veiled and still, holding herself together through sheer will. He moved forward before thought caught up with muscle. People stepped aside. The heavyweight champion who feared nothing felt his throat close. "Mrs. Lee," she turned, her eyes found his. Pierce's voice cracked. "He taught me humility without making me less. Does that make sense?" Linda's hand found his, squeezed hard. Her grip carried surprising strength. "It makes perfect sense." Pierce nodded, unable to speak. She released him, turned back toward the grave. He walked away through the crowd, wiping his face with the back of his hand. The numbness in his wrist flared, phantom memory, nerve endings remembering. But what he would tell the world about that night, that story was only beginning. The studio lights burned hot against Pierce's forehead. Years had carved lines deeper into his face, but his hands remained steady as he leaned toward the microphone. The interviewer asked about Los Angeles International Airport, June 1972. Pierce flexed his right hand, the memory sharp as broken glass. "My fingers went dead," he said. "Complete, nothing. Like someone cut the power." He described the terminal crowd, the cameras, his own arrogance dissolved in 3 seconds of pressure. The interviewer pressed for details. Pierce's voice dropped lower, reverent. "Bruce proved something that night. Size bows to knowledge, strength bows to speed. I had 40 pounds on him, didn't matter." The 2 weeks of training reshaped everything he thought he knew about combat. 17 knockouts meant nothing against a man who understood the body's hidden architecture. He was a fighter who did movies, Pierce said, not the other way around. The distinction mattered. Other interviews followed, magazines, television, documentary crews, each telling polished the legend brighter. But the lesson remained unchanged, passed from one generation of fighters to the next. Warriors recognize warriors. The discipline does not matter, the respect endures. Pierce's hand flexed once more beneath the lights, remembering.